Hi everybody! I'm trying this video again. Bear with me, I'm kind of winging it today. It's Sunday, um, March 29th. And I just wanted to walk you through a few things on our Moodle page and some research um, tools that will come in handy for you as you're doing your work on your research project. Tomorrow is Monday, and I want us to try a Hangout via Google Hangouts. And let me just show you that real quick while I'm thinking about it. So if you can join tomorrow at our regular class time, I will be there. And the way I'm going to get to it, I will also send you a link. So look at that email. But one way you can do it is to bring up your email. And I've got several Hangouts going right now. And I have one for our Lang120 classes. I have one for you guys that I meet with at 8 a.m. and one that I meet with you guys at 9:30. So the way I'm going to go on is I'm going to show up at my computer around 8 and click the Hangout here. Let me move myself over here. And this button right here will allow me to then get on the video call. And that's how you can do it as well. You'll click that, I'll click it, and there'll be a video call there. And then if you click it, you'll be joining the call. I will also send you a link to be able to do that as well. But if you have any questions, then bring this up and just type them in right there because it'll be on my computer screen too. So I just want to see you if you can make it, and we can check in that way and just kind of go through some of the things that we're doing and working on in class, and I can hear from you if you have any questions. So we'll do that tomorrow during our regular class time. I don't expect it to take an hour and 15 minutes, but it can, and I'll be there during that time. So let me know if you have any questions about that. Okay, so that's for tomorrow. I have several browsers going on at the same time these days. So we are working on the research project, and we had a great sort of synchronous speedstorming session on sorry for all the ums. I'm going to try and watch that on Friday. No, that was Wednesday, wasn't it? So here is the forum that we had for the Speedstorm. A lot of you replied to each other. A lot of you put in your ideas for research. You can still submit to that. In fact, if you are struggling with figuring out what you want to do for your research, I highly recommend that you go to this forum and read some of what other folks are doing, and that might spark an idea for you. So that's still open. Then following that forum on our Moodle page, you are working to submit to me, I'm sorry, lots of windows. You're working to submit to me your initial research plan, and that's a journal, but you want to submit your ideas there, and I ask you to kind of think about what your focus is, what some keywords could be that you use to search, and to search out a few sources and list those. And what I'm reading so far is looking very promising and really exciting. If you have submitted a post on this, at this point, it's about 4:15 on Sunday. I have given you some feedback, so go and check that out. If I have some ideas for some angles for you to consider, I've written that in there. If I have some ideas of how it might fit into one of the focuses that'll help keep this thing from getting too crazy, rhetoric or storytelling, I've given you some comments regarding that as well. So go and look at what I had to say in terms of what that feedback is. So, and let me know if you have any questions with that as well. You can still submit your initial research plan to this forum anytime. The sooner the better, because you'll have a running start on the next phase of this project, which is the development of an annotated bibliography and an essay. It's not exactly a research essay, but it does involve your research and how you are interpreting the conversation that you're finding around the research focus that you're exploring. So I want to look at that with you here today. Here we are on Moodle. I have a list I'm following. I'm going to switch this to student view. I should have done that right from the get-go. Bear with me. Okay, so you can find the annotated bibliography assignment in the next toggle. Right now we're on toggle number 11. Your initial research plan was above here. Toggle number 10. We haven't done much with this yet, but we might. And then here is the assignment for your annotated bibliography and conversation essay. I'm going to open that and just run through it with you. This is the last real bulk of the writing that you'll do. After this, you'll take what you researched and come up with your own creative response to it, and that has a lot of freedom and possibility. This is the part where we emphasize academic writing and scholarship with this assignment, the annotated bibliography and conversation essay. So it's a collection of texts that you come up with based on what you're researching. You already have a running start if you've submitted 3. It may be that as you continue to research, you don't end up sticking with just those 3 sources. You need a total of 5, and one must be a scholarly article, and that should change. You'll probably examine and look at, if you need about 5, you'll probably look at least 7 to 10 sources before you settle on the 5 that you feel really represents the conversation that appeals to you about your research topic. So the description is here. One has got to be a peer-reviewed scholarly article, and I'm going to look at the library database with you in just a minute so you can be sure that what you have is a scholarly article. The other 4 texts in this annotated bibliography can be anything. They can be TED Talks, documentaries, photographs, newspaper articles, blog posts, listicles, infographics. Those are up to you depending on what you're researching. So for example, if you're researching a genre, say you're doing something like podcast or graphic novels, a few of your sources, 2 or 3, could very well be actual graphic novels or podcasts. If you're doing something based on your StoryCorps and the idea of storytelling, then you could have the StoryCorps interview as one of your sources, or even a collection of StoryCorps interviews as a couple of your sources. And yes, TED Talks are also possibilities. What else? I know that there are so many that are possible here. So if you've got a question about a source and you're not sure if it qualifies, just shoot me an email. Chances are it does, as long as you also have a scholarly source. And the main thing with this is that your sources need to sort of represent a conversation about something. So say you're researching heavy metal, for example, and that genre of music, and you have questions about kind of who it appeals to and the kind of effects it has on people. So you research and you find some sources, some of which are saying that heavy metal is a bane on society, and some of which are saying heavy metal is actually a healing and creative way to deal with emotion. And that starts to give you some tension and some different perspectives. Remember the jar that we had early in the semester, and when we were looking at sort of all the different perspectives that people can give on that jar. The truth of the jar itself comes in our understanding of everybody's separate perspective. So think of that, and as you research, listen in for the conversation and the different voices in the conversation. If you're finding sources that all are saying the same thing and all agree with each other, push yourself to find some different angles. And it doesn't necessarily have to be somebody who is on the opposite end. You don't need to polarize anything by any means, but you want to get some different angles on your subjects and topics. So to that end, I think some of the most valuable stuff in this assignment comes here when I'm asking you to think about that and write about that. The essay that comes with the annotations and the annotated bibliography is you describing that conversation. So you can ask yourself questions like, who represents a different perspective in my collection of sources? Who cares about these texts? What are the stakes? Why should they matter? Are there any gaps here? Are there voices that are missing in the conversation? I have created a Google folder that gives you some student samples. Again, these are examples and not necessarily models, but I've given you some student work from last semester where the assignment was pretty much the same, and so you can see how people have approached this assignment. The other thing you will see in this assignment folder here in description are the minimum requirements. And so along with the description of what your annotations should include, they should describe and talk about why it's useful to you. So kind of two functions there for your annotations. And ways to go about the essay that describes your research as a whole, you have the minimum requirements here as well. Tomorrow when we get together, whether you can make it or not, send me your questions. Let's ask them in person if you are on the Google Hangout, or email me whatever questions that you have about this assignment as you start to kind of formulate your approach to it. So I will send a link to this Google folder to you in an email with this video. I have created a folder and I've shared that with you. I'll put it on our Moodle page as well, of student examples of the annotated bibliography. And I've given an assortment of things here. You've got one on heavy metal. That was why it was easy to use an example. There's one on the body positivity movement and the rhetoric around that. There's one on punk rock. I had a lot of music. And then there's one on gentrification, and one on the food guidelines, she kind of used an infographic. What is the rhetoric behind the food pyramid that the FDA circulates to everybody on their cereal boxes? So those are there for you to look at as guides of people who have done this and come before. Again, they're examples. None of them are perfect, but they all are very strong and should be helpful. Okay. So as you're thinking about your sources, let's just go to the library databases and do just a quick and dirty refresher on how to research. There's probably some research on how you shouldn't move yourself around on the screen when you are trying to explain things. So right here on our Moodle page, I have a link to search the library databases. You can get to the library a lot of different ways. I'm going to use this link right here today, but however you navigate to the library website is good. Okay, I sent these links in an email as well. This takes you right to all those databases. I want to quickly go to the home page at Ramsey Library as well. Right here, you have this link, recommended resources for online learning. I sent this link to you earlier as well. Here's a way to get in touch with Amanda and Brandy and John, the other research librarians, through chat and email. They are there and wanting to interact with you, and especially with this project. We would be meeting with them in person if we were on campus right now. So please avail yourselves of their availability. There's the searchable article database right here, ebooks, streaming video. If you get bored with Netflix, Canopy is really awesome as well. And then ebook interlibrary loan, which is good for you. All of these things are their recommended go-to things for people researching at home right now, which is what you are going to be doing. So just to refresh your memory on what we did with Amanda when we worked on the StoryCorps project. Here are your popular research databases. Of course, you can select one specific to you, and I've already heard from some of you that you found some that are very subject specific, which have been really helpful to you. This is where you can go to kind of look at that. The catch-alls are always a good place to start as well, and ProQuest Central is one that I typically start with. Let me log in. Okay. So one of the main things I want to show you today is how to be absolutely sure that you have a scholarly or peer-reviewed source. So I'm going to just use a couple of you are doing podcasts. So I'm going to just try those as my search terms right now. So maybe podcasts. And you usually want to have something that goes with it. So you could have a specific kind of podcast, like storytelling podcast. So maybe, let me see if I can qualify it a little bit. So what if I put podcast and storytelling? Let's just see what that gives me in terms of what ProQuest in general has. I have a cat down here. All right. So, you can get the very best of digital podcasts and 3 of the best storytelling podcasts. So this could help you narrow down to some specific podcasts. These are a lot of kind of news releases, which can be helpful. Hooked on storytelling magic of serialized podcasts. So there's an even more interesting way to narrow that scope a little bit. The serialized podcasts, the ones that are telling stories over several episodes. I know that for Cormac, there's one that he listens to called Finn Caspian, The Alien Adventures of Finn Caspian, and that is a serialized podcast where you get a new installment every day. Not all storytelling podcasts are like that. The Moth, for example, they're all discrete, different voices. So you want to see what different kinds of podcasts there are and the things that you are researching. So there's a lot of good ones here when we look at podcasts. Some things that are nice over here with the library, you can, not much written before 1995 on podcasts, but you can even sort of narrow your date range. So I want to look at podcasts in the last 6 years perhaps and see what people are writing about that then. This is a way of finding out what kind of conversation is happening. So here you have source types: scholarly journals, books, dissertations, newspapers, and magazines. Your different kind of sources here. The foolproof way to make sure you're getting a scholarly source is to limit the sources to peer-reviewed sources on ProQuest Central. I think all the search databases that we have some kind of toggle or button that you can hit that limits your search results just to scholarly sources. You could also do this, but as you'll see, peer-reviewed also incorporates magazines, conference newspapers, and proceedings, not just scholarly journals. So that's important to look. Transhumanism, transmedia, and the Serial podcast, redefining storytelling in times of enhancement. That sounds fascinating. Healing through storytelling, indigenizing social work with stories. So as you can see, you can start to research something with some basic ideas in mind. I want to research storytelling podcast, and then as you look at your sources, you could then find the conversation that there are lots of different conversations happening about the thing that you want to research, and something may stand out to you as the trail that you want to explore. So let's say we want to look at healing through storytelling. This little scholarly thing means it's a scholarly journal. We're looking at its English language, the British Journal of Social Work. So if we click on that, we get the abstract. Do we get the full text? Wow, there's a lot of good stuff in all this. So it looks like this is storytelling in a bigger sense than just podcast, although it does include some information about podcast. And as you look through, you see there's a DOI. I don't know about the full text though. So this one has some full text options. This would be the way to go for you to request the full text via interlibrary loan. And they will be able to get you that pretty quickly. You can also send, this is like the dedicated link, so look for the DOI with these articles. You could send that DOI to Amanda or any librarian through the chat or email and ask them to help you find the full text, and they will go to it for you. The other thing I want to show you here is that they give you related items. So this is taking me away from podcast and taking me more towards indigenizing studies, indigenous studies, and critical theory and social work. So that's something interesting to pay attention to, where your sources are going to lead you. It could be promising, it could drift you away a little bit. It's all important and all part of that conversation. But pay attention to kind of those, and sometimes you'll get a link that takes you deeper into exactly where you want to be. Sometimes it'll be a tangent. All of it's valuable, but be mindful of where you're led. Be mindful of where your research is going to lead you. Put some heart in this. It'll make it more meaningful. Okay, so let's see. Podcast in alternative high school. Here's something interesting. Storytelling in acoustic spaces, podcasting as embodied and engaged scholarship. Another one that you need to request full text. Pay attention to these little links down here too. Here are things that have some full text. I think, let's see, why don't we limit to full text? There's a toggle right there if you want to do that. Now, interlibrary loan, don't be afraid of it. You can find some wonderful things that maybe don't have full text that you can get pretty easily. So maybe don't start limiting to full text. But as you narrowed in and you continue to research, there's one way to ensure that you're just going to get full text articles. Summer reads. That's interesting. Be careful of book reviews. There are scholarly book reviews, but they're not going to count towards your scholarly source. The book will. So if this is about a novel, and I'm only getting a search result for storytelling with this one. So as you can see, as I'm sort of working this out with you, there's a lot to pay attention to. You can refine. Say you want to do podcast and storytelling and feminism. You can further refine your search terms and see if that yields anything else. I only get 18 results of that. But there's some interesting stuff here. Third wave feminism and Wonder Woman. This could relate to graphic novels as well. Feel free to steal any of my search terms and use them. A guide to some of the best podcasts. This could be a good lead for adding actual podcasts as sources to your annotated bibliography. There are many rabbit holes that I would like to go down with some of these sources, but I hope this gives you sort of a sense of what's possible. And I'm just using ProQuest Central. Google Scholar works in a similar way. Make sure you're logged into your UNCA Gmail when you're using Google Scholar, because you will get automatic access to the full text PDFs if we have that through our library. If you do that, and JSTOR is also a popular database that works in very much the same way. Let's see. So what we can do when you hang out with me tomorrow, or if you send me some specific questions related to your search and your research, we can plug in some keywords and experiment with that together, either in person on our phone call during class time tomorrow, hangout phone call, or you can correspond with me individually in any way, and I can go and plug in some keywords and then send you some things that come up. So when you've got some search, you may want to create an account here and select your items. One last thing, I'm going to do this one, political science and podcast. Read the abstracts, but then you want to definitely annotate the full text. You need to read the full text and write your annotation based on that as well. You want to use this, and you can email yourself these sources. So you get a thing that comes up here. You want to include the bibliographic citation at the end. We typically are going to do MLA unless you have a really good reason for wanting to do another source. Select MLA 8th edition. You can include any of these. You can put in your email address. I can also search things and email it to you. Change the title. Something that will help you remember what it was. You can type yourself any kind of a note that will be helpful to you. And then I got that email. So that's what I recommend to do to make sure you are saving your sources and you can return back to them. Email them to yourself. Don't just, you can also download the PDF, but don't just select that link because it changes. It's a proxy. So make sure you're emailing it to yourself or the librarian. You can email the librarian. I'm scrolling down to see if it gives me the DOI as well. It might give me that. It probably gives me that in the email. Oh, look, you always have a DOI right there. So that's another way. It's a dedicated number to the source that will help you track that back down. Yes, all right, so I'm sure there's more that I have not shown you, but hopefully that's helpful as you engage in your research, the scholarly research, and don't underestimate Googling and some HuffPost articles may be just what you need to fill out that conversation that you're looking for. But spend some time here in ProQuest because it's not all scholarly in ProQuest, and it's a good way to use a database to narrow down and really select and refine your search to get the conversation that you're wanting to listen to. Okay. Yes, I think that about covers it for now. Check in with me tomorrow and let's see where we are. It's been nice to hear from you. I do want to show you how you're being creative these days was so good for me. It was good to hear your voices. And here's another check-in forum that's going to count towards your attendance. Where are you finding beauty these days? Anything goes, pictures, words, recordings, little videos. I am doing something with these, and I'm going to send all of this in a link later tonight. Oops. Where did it go? Okay, so on our website, Lang120, Composing Ourselves. I'm doing posts. And here I'm using you what you send me. This is Madison's video of her playing soccer tennis with her sister. Here are some of the photos you guys sent me. Thank you for all of those. I've given you credit in the caption, and I've done some quotes. I'm still going to add to this from that forum that you did about how you're being creative. But do one on beauty, and I'll post that on our website as well, so we can show the world how we are making it through this. All right, so let me know what you need. Look for an email from me. Actually, if you're watching this, you've probably gotten the email from me. And yes, let me know if you have any questions. I'm thinking about you all. I miss you. And I'm looking forward to checking in with whoever can make it tomorrow at our regular class time. All right, take care.